I've known a lot of successful contractors over the years. Some of them built companies doing $3, $5, $10, even $20 million a year. And here's something that might surprise you. A lot of them never became wealthy. They worked incredibly hard. They took enormous risk. They employed a lot of people and generated millions of dollars in revenue. But after 10 or 20 years of doing it, they didn't have nearly as much to show for it as you might expect. And I think I know why. Most contractors learn the trade before they ever learn the business. They learn how to sell, they learn how to install, they learn products and production and how to deal with customers. Then the business starts growing and suddenly they're responsible for something nobody ever taught them how to manage: the economics of a company. And this is where things can go very wrong. I've watched business owners build companies with millions of dollars of revenue without truly understanding their margins. They couldn't tell you exactly what their gross profit needed to be. They didn't have a disciplined overhead model. They weren't managing cash flow intentionally. They were operating thin. And when you're operating thin, you're always waiting for something to save you. One more big month, one huge project, another $1 million in revenue, and maybe someday that big exit. There's this belief that eventually you're going to have a big hit, and that is when all of this sacrifice will finally pay off. I think that's a terrible way to build wealth, because the goal shouldn't be to someday get rich from your business. The goal should be to build a business that systematically creates wealth while you own it. There's a huge difference. Let's say you're building a $3 or a $4 million company. Before the year ever begins, you should have a profitability model. You should understand what your gross margins need to be, what you're willing to spend on overhead, what the business needs for working capital and reserves, and what level of profit you expect the company to produce. And your plan? It should include distributions to the owner, not random withdrawals, not draining the bank account because you want a new boat. Planned distributions based on profitability and cash flow. Then comes the hard part. You've got to execute to that model. If the business doesn't produce the profitability that you planned for, you don't pretend that it did. You don't strain the company by pulling cash out that it hasn't earned. You figure out why you missed. Was your pricing wrong? Did your material cost increase? Did your labor get away from you? Did overhead creep up? Did your close rate fall? Did you spend too much to acquire customers? You find the problem, you confront it, and you fix it. That's discipline. But when the company does execute to the model, you distribute. And then you do it again, quarter after quarter, year after year. Now that's not nearly as exciting as telling somebody you own a $20 million company, but I'll tell you what it can do. It can change your family's future. That's why I keep coming back to something I believe in very strongly. Revenue impresses your neighbors, but profit changes your family's future. I've seen entrepreneurs doing less than $5 million a year who understood this incredibly well. They operated with strong margins, they controlled their overhead, generated a healthy cash flow, and they consistently took distributions from that wealth-producing machine that they built. And over time, those distributions, they became investments, real estate, retirement accounts, other businesses, assets outside the company. Quietly, year after year, they became wealthy. I've also watched owners build companies doing $10 or $15 million in revenue who were barely making ends meet. More employees, more trucks, more offices, more overhead, more complexity. They built something bigger, but they didn't necessarily build something better. And that's one of the great traps of entrepreneurship. We celebrate size when we should be celebrating mastery, because ultimately, the purpose of your business isn't to produce the largest revenue number possible. It's to create value for your customers, for your employees, for your community, and yes, for you and your family. There's nothing selfish about that. In fact, this is one of the central beliefs behind the servant and the savage. Purpose requires profit. You can't create jobs without profit. You can't invest in your people without profit. You can't weather difficult economic periods without profit. You can't give generously create freedom for your family, or pursue a greater purpose if the business consumes everything that it produces. Profit, it's not something to apologize for. Profit is oxygen. And learning how to consistently produce it is one of the fundamental disciplines of becoming a great entrepreneur. It's also one of the reasons that financial education is such an important part of what we're building here at Window Depot USA. We can give you products, we can give you buying power, marketing systems, sales training, leads, but if you don't understand the economics of your business, none of that is enough. So we can teach you, but then you've got to execute. Because ultimately, the goal isn't to help you build the biggest window company in the market. It's to help you build a great company, a profitable company, a company that creates freedom instead of consuming it. And eventually, a company that becomes a valuable asset independent of you. So if you're a contractor who's doing millions of dollars in revenue, but wondering why you don't feel wealthy yet, don't automatically assume you need more sales. Look at your model, look at your margins, look at your overhead, look at your cash flow, and ask yourself a much more important question. Is my business getting bigger, or is it actually making me wealthier? Because these are not the same thing. And the sooner you understand the difference, the sooner you can start building the business that you thought you were building in the first place.